Wow. Can't get any better than this. This is extraordinary. Now, who am I? Every night, Saturday and Sunday night, I have a radio show on iHeartMedia, and I have a podcast that you can listen to any day. And the beginning of every show is, who is Mark Weber? I have a sign out there with my picture on it, and all it says is, I'm formerly someone. And I was. I started in a company called PVH Van Heusen. I began as a clerk, and I eventually became president, board member, and CEO. From there, I left and went to Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, where I became a member of the executive committee in Paris. I became the CEO of LVMH Inc. in the United States and ran a bunch of companies for them. I, too, was busy. I wrote 2 books that were published by McGraw-Hill. The latest was called Always in Fashion, of which I've turned into a radio show and a podcast. So I'm here, I'm recognized because I've had this crazy, great career. I wasn't supposed to have this career. I was born in the city projects. I had no mentors. I had no one to look after me. I had no one who could guide me. My mother loved me like crazy and taught me right from wrong, and my father was the sweetest guy in the world. When I get a hit playing baseball, you'd see he'd be the one crying. Sweet guy, very quiet. I would have never, ever, ever been here tonight if it wasn't for people teaching me, showing an interest. My first memory in business had to do with a gentleman named Stanley C. Gillette. He was my first president at Phillips Van Heusen, the Van Heusen Shirt Company. We're invited to a venue similar to this, hundreds of people of our associates, and him giving a town hall. And he stood up and he addressed the group and he looked out at the audience and he said, I'm so proud to be your president. I'm even prouder to see the number of young people here because you're our future. And whether you know it or not, you're important to it, more important to the company than we are to you. I saw him and I saw something that I wanted to emulate. I wanted to have the ability to stand up and talk to people. And even back then, before there was even a glimmer of an idea that I would be a father, I said to myself, if I learn this someday, I'll be able to teach my children how to speak as well. I wasn't supposed to have this career. Having said that, I'm here as a Father of the Year because I had a great career, but I also think I've been a pretty good father. You know, I can end this conversation right now. There it is. I'm done. I'd like to let you go to the parade, but I have the podium and I'm going to take advantage of it for a moment. First and foremost, I want to thank the Father's Day Council for honoring Jared and I at the same time. I'm also so excited that Jesse's here and we're all together because it's fitting, because our whole lives we've always been together, and it's priceless. Today, we honor the most important thing there is to honor, family. I'm surrounded by my family today. You've heard their names. I also call out my daughter-in-laws. I'm a father to Jared and Jesse, a father-in-law to Ina and Haley. I have 3 little guys, Dax, Cole, and Summer. I'm like that other gentleman before. I can't get the words out. I'm not a I can't say it. I view myself too young. But if one of the greatest marketing ploys of my life, I decided that I would never allow myself to be called grandfather, unless the boys are trying to make fun of me. I came up with the idea that I am daddy's daddy, so I'm known as Dee. And while these little guys were struggling to have their first words, they could say Dee, and they were running around the house or crawling around, Dee, like Roadrunner. So I'm also surrounded by a number of very close people to our family. We're a tight-knit family. I assure you, you've never met a family like ours, and anybody who's in that circle is very special, and they deserve to be. I love them all. We all love them all, and we're so glad they're here. How am I doing? Okay? I always ask if I'm boring. Every speech I've ever made, I'm boring, and sooner or later, someone's going to yell yes. When I did the book, Always in Fashion, I wanted to call it is this boring? And the publishers, McGraw-Hill, wouldn't let me do it because they thought all the critics would say, yes, it's boring. But having said that, I have to tell you that there were two indemnable moments that broke through to me about being a father and being about family. The first took place in the movie The Godfather. Don Corleone talking to Frankie Fontaine, his godson. When he leans over, he says, "Do you spend time with your family?" Frankie Fontaine says, "Sure I do, Godfather." And Marlon Brando, as the Godfather, said, "Good, because any man that doesn't spend time with his family cannot be a real man." And I know it sounds like I'm joking, but I thought about that, and I said, I was so intrigued by this guy in the movie. You got to spend time with your family. And then, more importantly in life, I had children. Jared's 6 years old. I'm doing well. I'm really doing well. As I said, I wasn't supposed to have this career, but here I am, young. I was the president of the Van Heusen Shirt Company, the largest shirt company in the world, when I was 34 years old, traveling all over the world, working hard, spending time in it. My wife looked at me and said, "What's the use of success, Mark, if it doesn't provide you time with your family? Your boys need you. They need to hear from you. They need role model. You have to spend time with your family." And she was right. And when I see Jared and he talk about how much time Jesse said he spends with his family, I don't take credit for much in life, but I tell you what, that may have had an impact on him because he said what I was going to say. I figured a way to rearrange my time. If I'm successful, I should be able to spend time with my family. I figured out a way. I never missed a school play. I never missed a school recital. I never missed a ball game. I went to everything. I was always there for the boys, to guide them, to root them on. I loved it. In business, it was different. If you knew Mark Weber, you knew Mark Weber's sons. Anywhere I went, I brought them. Everybody knew my children. When I traveled around the country, they came with me. When I traveled to Asia, I brought them when they weren't in school. It was a remarkable time to help develop the boys. Every sales meeting, from the moment they started walking, they were there. When we would negotiate with a hotel about having a sales meeting, like if we came here, if there was a bar, then boys had to be allowed in the bar, otherwise we wouldn't take the sales meeting in that hotel. And again, always in my head, my wife Susie, who passed away 9 years ago. Mark set an example for the boys. Mark, they need to see you in the best light. Mark, you're the best teacher they can have. With LVMH in Europe, the boys came. They came with me to my meetings. Jesse sat with me in board meetings. If Jared was free, we went again. When we had the meetings, before the meetings took place, I sat down with them and explained to them, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is what I'm going to tell them. This is what I'm hoping to hear, so that they were prepared and understood what we were doing. And at the end of each one of those meetings, I would explain to them what went right and what went wrong. Every speech I made in my life, if I could get them there, if they weren't in school, they were there. From the annual shareholders meeting at Phillips Van Heusen when I became the CEO, to meetings with Calvin Klein or Donna Karan or any of the other incredibly gifted people I worked with. I wanted to give my boys a chance. I wanted to make sure that they understood what was important in life. Family and trying your best. One of my favorite stories, Jesse was kind enough to say how much time and effort we put in together on his journey to become a news anchor with his own television show on News Nation, Jesse Weber Live. Jared has a huge job at the biggest and most crazy growing company in our industry. This company, Authentic Brands Group, where Jared holds a president's title, is the largest licensing company in the world after Disney. I wanted them to learn. I just needed them to learn. I have another story for you. I get a call from a gentleman named Bob Mettler. I don't know how many of you know him. He used to be the chairman of Macy's San Francisco. Calls me on the phone and says, "Mark, I need you in my office tomorrow." I said, okay, Bob, you want to tell me what you want to talk about? No. I fly out there, and, oh, by the way, he tells me, we'll have the meeting at 7 o'clock. I said, are you crazy? 7 o'clock? I'm flying on a plane to get there. He says, it's 10 o'clock in the morning in San Francisco. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. It's 10 o'clock in New York, where the bosses are. So I go there, I sit down with him, and while we're talking, all of a sudden he gets a phone call. He says, Mark, excuse me, it's my son. I learned then and there again what I know today and never forgot. Your sons or your daughters call you, you pick up the phone. And he talks to this young man, and you could tell he was very young and he needed his father. I said, Bob, what is he, in high school? And he looked at me and he said, Mark, my son is 37 years old. And no matter how old they get, Mark, they're going to always need you. I've had, and I've heard tonight, every parent makes choices. They make sacrifices. They do it for their children. I will tell you uncategorically, I never made a sacrifice for my children. Helping them with their homework on the floor when they were 6 years old was a joy to me. They've never forgotten it. Hanging around in the backyard, playing pushy daddy, being there with them, spending the time, they never forgot it. Time with them was spent well. It was happy, spent well time. And I was always there. But the reality is, I was selfish. I was doing it for me. I enjoyed it. I found time in my career to be a father, a teacher, a mentor, a role model. Everything I did and do is to help set an example for my children. I still get the calls in the morning or during the day, and I'm always picking up the phone because it means so much to me. Before I finish, I want to congratulate the other honorees. You're good guys. I really like listening to what you had to say. I also want to tell you, by the way, you all look beautiful and handsome out there. This is the first time I've been in a room where I've seen normal people dressed normally. What happened to this country? I would say to you, yes, I spent a ton of time with my children. I also spent a lot of time and quality time building the companies I work for. I took my responsibilities very seriously. I never shortchanged them. I think it was Carvel. What's his name, the first name? Carvel. What's his name? Who? Tom Carvel. Not that Carvel, the political pundit. Carvel, thank you. What's his first name? James. Dave Carvel. Help me here. James Carvel, thank you. I saw a speech James Carvel made where he said, they paid me for my head, but I threw in my heart for free. That's what I did in the life I did in business. I've been going at this a long time. I'm still on the radio. I'm still doing podcasts, and I love every minute. You met my children. They speak for me. My wife was the architect of the family. I knew nothing. She knew everything. She insisted that I become the man I became when it came to my children. People ask me, am I proud of my children? I was proud of them when they were missing ground balls and the balls would go over their head and Jesse was looking at butterflies. Of course I was proud of them, but now I'm relieved. It's not a question about proud anymore. Of course I'm proud of them. I'm relieved to see how they turned out. I'm happy for the time we spent and the time we continue to spend. So my presentation began, who is Mark Weber? Every radio show on Saturday, Sunday night, every podcast begins with who is Mark Weber? After all is said and done, Mark Weber is Jared and Jesse's father. I'm proud to be known as a father. And Dee Dee. I'm getting a trophy for it. What a joke. But I have to tell you, you can only imagine what it feels like to be standing up here with my children, with my elder son getting an award and I getting an award. Judge me as a father. Thank you.